How good are Dreadnoughts?
They're okay. I think you need to run at least 4 or 5 in a list to get your money's worth from them. We are live. Play your little jingle to yourself if you need to.
I think I'm gonna do it raw this time.
Are you going to raw dogging?
I'm going in raw.
Raw dogging moments.
Are you ready?
Raw dog
Are
it.
you ready?
Raw dog it.
Okay. I think I choked. Okay.
You should never say that when you're raw dogging.
I think you choked.
Yeah.
So we're 12. It's true. We're 12. Hi, this is Jason.
And this is Pete.
And this is the Lost Legions podcast. And today we're going to talk to you guys about Dreadnoughts.
Woohoo.
So Pete, how good are Dreadnoughts?
They're okay. I think you need to run at least 4 or 5 in a list to get your money's worth from them. Yeah, they're all right. They're pretty good. They're really good. They're really strong, right? They're really fun, but they're really good.
Yeah, that seemed like a super, super strong option. Definitely so the rules have changed a little bit on them from 1.0, and they've gone into monstrous creature territory now where they are toughness instead of armor value. How do you feel about the change? What do you think?
Yeah, I love it, actually. They were too easy to kill, that's for sure. They feel survivable, but they also don't feel like they do all of the damage. They will take, a number of turns to chew through a 20-man squad, and that feels thematic, but they feel tough as nails, right? So I like the change in general. I don't think they've got the toughness and armor save mix quite right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So they're 2 up armor save, 5 up invulnerable save, and a 7 toughness. So we're
just talking about contemptors, right? I think.
Yes.
We'll just touch on those for today. So it's a real hard thing to get through. I would have liked to have seen something along the lines of the armor save degrades or something over time, or the toughness degrades over time, something to show that they are, getting weakened, because ultimately a 1 wound dreadnought can be just as operable as a 6 wound dreadnought.
Yeah. I mean, I think the interesting thing is, the frustrating thing maybe is that missile launchers don't do anything against dreadnoughts now. And it's just very strange because they're AP3. So missile launchers just bounce off them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I've wondered if they overshot the mark on the armor value and just made them a little too strong, because the toughness seems pretty good to me. The 6 wounds seem pretty good to me. Weapon skill 5, they should be scary creatures coming at you. You before you were like, it's a dreadnought. Maybe it'll hold me up a turn because of the vehicle chart, because maybe I won't roll and explode. And that happened, but you weren't freaking out. Now you're like, oh crap, it's a dreadnought, which feels thematic and fluffy, but they do seem a little hard to take down. And maybe we should go into a little bit about legions, because some legions rules work better than others with them. Say the Iron Hands, where at that point they are toughness 8,
pseudo toughness 8,
shooting.
Right? Yeah.
So they're immune to strength 4 shooting, immune to bolters, so they can't be nickel and dimed.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are a lot of Legion traits that make them then quite a bit better. In particular, that one, right? Because it just makes them tougher. I would maybe if the strength of the weapon was equal or higher to the toughness, then the armor save becomes a 3+ rather than a 2+. That would have been maybe just enough to make them, so auto cannons can chug through it because it's tearing its armor more easily, but not beating its armor save entirely. Something along those lines, like missile launchers would then pierce it, right, as well. But yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Tough one. Other legions. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what legions do you think have the most interesting rules effective? I'll tell you right now, Night Lords do not. because they Dreadnoughts count as one dude. So
okay.
that means they outnumber nobody, which means they do not get their special rules.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think Iron Hands has got to be pole position.
Yep.
You know, being toughness 7 is amazing. Being toughness 8 is off the chain. I think Emperor's Children are actually particularly good for them. Having that +1 initiative with them on the charge is, you know, one of the things for sure. Dreadnoughts tear up Dreadnoughts, right? Because their melee is brutal 3, which from their power fists, I believe, which means it does 3 wounds, obviously, for each successful attack, each successful wound, rather. And if you're doing that ahead of your opponent, then great news. You should be able to do some serious damage. So I think they're pretty good. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that jumps to my mind, really. Sure.
I mean, Space Wolf ones will have +1 weapon skill on the charge, I think, which is really cool. Maybe not that insane, but again, I think on Dreadnought combat, like you kind of said, it's going to actually edge out, right? Because other Dreadnoughts are going to be hitting them on 5s, and they're going to be hitting on 3s. So that's actually a pretty cool combo.
Yeah.
Maybe the Sons of Horus, because they're going to be first round of combat, they're going to be an extra toughness, so they're going to be toughness 8. I mean, I think weapons that you're going after Dreadnoughts with are mainly going to be power fists and chain fists and thunderhammers. So like, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Just going to be wounding them on 4s. But I guess if 4s instead of 3s is pretty big.
Yeah, I think it's just fairly big, isn't it? Yeah. I think White Scars for the extra movement. I think that would be pretty cool. Which translates to plus, I forget. There's something in the chart. It might be +2 to their charge. I think so, because they become movement. They're movement 8 standard. Yeah. Is the movement? It's movement 6 to 8, isn't it? It's just the 2d6.
Movement 6 to 7, up to
5
7.
to 7, is it? And
once you're 8, it's +1 to charge.
And it's 9 +1 still.
It's at least +1. It might be +2.
So it might not make much difference there then.
But it's still not horrible.
Yeah. And also it's not particularly fluffy, is it, I guess, to have all of the all of the White Scars Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see a White Scars Fury of the Ancients list.
This is my White Scars Fluffy Fury of the Ancients list. Dude, just leave.
Just Ralcand White.
So what are your experiences fighting against Dreadnoughts or fighting with
I'm glad you asked, because I have no experience of fighting with any so far. With fighting against lots, but not fighting with, no. So the rule concussive is your friend is my biggest thing I've found so far. Las cannons are pretty good. So a good counter to them is Iron Warriors in general. You get +1 strength to your weapons firing against vehicles and Dreadnoughts. So, las cannons are wounding Dreadnoughts on, they're wounding on 2s. We're wounding Leviathans on 2s still. Also, cannons are wounding them on 2s. You end up doing a lot more damage to them because you're just wounding them a bit more easily. But concussive, I've been using a lot of the little Saber strike tanks with the neutron blasters, and they have the concussive roll. And for those that might not know, concussive reduces your weapon skill if you fail a concussive test, which is basically your leadership. And those guns are concussive free, right? So you can reduce a Dreadnought's weapon skill down by 3, so weapon skill 2, and then something else can mop them up. I've chucked breaches in on them. In that scenario, that's worked really well. Haywire is insanely good against them, which is ironic. And I've spoken to Will Henry about this a few times, and he's the first to say, Iron Hands probably are one of the most powerful legions currently because they have the best Dreadnoughts with the toughness boost, and they have access to all of the Haywire, which makes them probably the best Dreadnought hunters as well. So in a game where it's Dreadnought versus Dreadnought at the moment, and you are better at taking out Dreadnoughts, and your Dreadnoughts are more survivable than your opponents, that's, pretty clear, right? So there's that. I think they're the main things that I've noticed so far. Things that just slow them down. Tar pitting's pretty good. And just focusing fire. My first game I played of 2.0 was against James, and I really underestimated them. He had 3. 3 Dreadnoughts in this 2,000 point game, and a couple Land Raiders filled with some Phalanx Warders. And I was concerned with those Warders getting into my back line, so I focused fired on the Land Raiders, dealt with those, but then the Dreadnoughts just munched through my back line entirely. My following game, similar situation with 1 or 2 Dreadnoughts, I think it was, against Ollie Mew. Beautiful White Skulls Force for those that know. And I just focus fired on them as soon as I could. Make them snap fire with those little neutron blasters, things like that. It works quite well. So they're less scary the more I've played.
This is the last game I played against them. Like, I think we were playing a team game, and my buddy was like, well, don't fire at the Dreadnoughts, we're not going to kill them. And I'm like, dude, I think you need to fire often and early at Dreadnoughts, right? And then they die, is what I've noticed. But you need to shoot them to start with, and then keep shooting them. Well, go ahead.
You're quite right. And the Contemptor in particular, I know I said we wouldn't talk about the Leviathan, but this is an important point here. They are both very, very different. I would argue the Contemptor is more scary than the Leviathan in its current form. Just given its speed, Jay, right? The 2 more movement. The Contemptor has weapons that are over 24-inch range if it wants to as well. Yeah. So, a Leviathan, maximum range it can shoot is 24.
Storm cannons might be 36, but nobody takes them.
They're 24. They're 24. Yeah.
Are they 24?
Yeah. Oh, so I think the Grav and the Melter are 18, and the Storm cannon's 24. So you stand corrected. But you're quite right with what you're saying, right? Start shooting them with las cannons at range straight away, like make them come forward to you, and by the time they get close, they're on half wounds, and then you can probably deal with them. But
that's when you run your Terminators in, and you can fist them to death at that point, right? Like that was my experience. Yeah. I think the other thing to be cognizant of is, because depending on their weapon loadout, shooting them before you charge them might not always be a great idea. And this is, I think, something in 2.0 that people need to wrap their heads around. Like, and it might feel strange and or bad to some people. Yeah. But when that guy has 2 twin-linked multi-melter shots, and you have 3 Terminators left running in there, you might not want to charge him, right?
Yeah.
Like, even 5 Terminators, you're not going to want to lose 2 of them. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you have to kind of you're not going to want to shoot them, get shot back, then charge in, get overwatched, and then possibly get wiped out. Like, so it's something to remember with how strong their weaponry is.
Well, this is why I really think the best counter for them in terms of reactions, because it's all right saying, dump a Melter Squad in front of them and kill them, but realistically, that Melter Squad's going to be reduced to half strength by the time it's taking the reaction fire, right?
Yeah, because it's going to fire back.
Yeah, exactly. And then they've probably got more than 1 Dreadnought, so you can't just keep wasting Melter Gun Squad's units at them and stuff. Your range is really key here, right? And I think it's being slept on quite a bit, and probably people are going to laugh a little bit here, but the little Sicaran Venator and its bigger brother, is it Cerberus? You're not going to see that obviously as often, it's super heavy. But the Sicaran Venator with that 36-inch range neutron beam laser, I think it's called, is that you've got one, haven't you?
Yeah, I do for my wolves, actually. I've had it for a long time. I loved it in 1.0.
Dude, give that a go and see how well that will take out Dreadnoughts. I guarantee it. Because I'm using the Sabres with the same gun. It's not as good a gun, and it's got less range. It's 24-inch range. So the problem is I'm always in reaction fire range. Whereas with that 36, you're gonna be out of multi-melter range. People aren't really running las cannons that much on their Dreadnoughts at the minute. It's more multi-melters. And as long as you wound it, you make it snap fire next turn. So you immediately limit its ability. And if it then has to take a concussive test, again, as long as it's been wounded, regardless if it saves the wound or not. And then you can reduce its leadership, and they will just shut them down. So yeah, I think they're underestimated in quite a big way.
Yeah, I want to pick up some of the Saber tanks too for a couple of my lists. Actually, I think they're really good. I think they're neat. I think they're cool models.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a really good shout. Like, look at the Sicaran the Scarens and the Sabers with the neutron lasers and maybe mix them into your lists, right? Like, especially because vehicles kind of get a little bit of short shrift now in 2.0, but I think that like there are some really, really good vehicle weapon platforms still left in the game.
Yeah.
That are totally usable. So, I mean, like with all this told, so what kind of comp have you seen in events like for Dreadnoughts? Because we have started to see some kind of creep in.
Yeah, well, I've got my event coming up under 30k Frontier at the end of the year, and we're limiting Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts are losing the Talon special rule.
Yeah.
So you can take 4 Contemptors if you really wish to, but you're not going to take any other elites, right?
Yeah.
We're also not allowing the Fury of the Ancients Right of War, which allows you to take Dreadnoughts as troops, right? For those that don't know, I'm sure those know by now. Anyone that's listening to this who doesn't want to take all the Dreadnoughts as troops, it's obviously it looks great, but it's just far too powerful, really. If you don't, I think you need to. If there's like a standard 3,000 point game, I think that's probably like pretty much the average, right, of what you'd be playing. I think you need to be packing the tools to deal with 3 Dreadnoughts, and I think that's kind of a fair place to be. Anything more, I think it's a bit too much. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think that like, and we've also kind of like just friend group wise talked about 1 Dreadnought per 1,000 points ish, right?
Yeah.
Like, and kind of comping it to that. And I think that if you kind of prepare to deal with that, you're pretty good. And I mean, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think Heresy Hammer's new event, they are limiting Dreadnoughts a little bit as well. So it's like, I think everyone's kind of leaning into limiting Dreadnoughts. I think there was a actual event at Warhammer World which didn't, and it was all Fury of the Ancients lists.
Yeah,
but
which is sad, right?
You also expect Warhammer World to not comp their own event.
No, of course, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see comp, and I think it's well deserved. I think Dreadnoughts. I think strangely, almost like if the comp was built into the actual rules, if it was like 1 Dreadnought per 1,000 points or something in the rules, I think that they would be fine, right? Like, because they're really powerful, and I like them being powerful and tough. I think eventually we're going to see a little bit of a nerf for them because they're really hard to deal with. And in a way, I'm sad because I feel like if they somehow points limited them or 0 to 1 per whatever, like then I think that they could keep them at the current level. But yeah, I think you're going to see them limited events because we've already started to see this, and I think it's going to increase people's enjoyment.
Yeah.
But alternatively, they feel great. Like they feel good.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel good when you have 3 of them bearing down on you and there's nothing.
Well, they're Primarchs, aren't they? That's the thing, right? They have basically the same stat line as Primarchs minus the weapon skill and initiative,
and the attacks. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But they can take decent ranged weapons, whereas the majority of Primarchs don't have.
Sure.
But they're also half the points of most Primarchs.
But you're also like, it's a Primarch. So like when a Primarch comes running in and absolutely beats the ever-living crap out of everything that's not a Primarch, you're like, okay.
I might do it.
Play. Yeah, Primarch.
The Fury of the Primarchs list versus the Fury. That's what we should do. A Fury of the Primarchs list versus a Furies of the Ancients list.
Does that mean we can take Talons of Primarchs?
Just do. What's the like 300-400 points on average, right? You could do 6 or 7 Primarchs versus like 12 Dreads, 13 Dreads. I know who I'd have. I know who my money's on.
The Dreads.
100%. We need to do this.
My money's on Lehman Russ. Because he's the guy with 9 attacks, weapon skill 9 on the charge, brutal 2, murderous strike.
All right.
Shame what happens to your talent of Contemptors.
I'm setting this up. I've got everyone down, which Joe, you sadly can't make for my little summer barbecue.
Yep.
Annual get together thing next weekend. I'm gonna tell everyone bring a Primarch if you've got one, and bring Dreadnoughts. We're gonna do Dreadnought Primarch smash up drunk game. There we go.
So we'll do a follow-up video.
Follow-up video. Yeah, I'll get pictures and we'll see what shakes. That's definitely happening.
All right, guys. Well, thanks
anyway
for joining our Contemptor talk.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.